leading the TOK project. So I'm Alejandro.
I'm Geena Roberts.
I'm Juan.
I'm Norwood.
And this is our presentation.
Alright, so this is the first video we're just going to show you, and yeah, just click it real quick.
Maybe volume on the white clicker.
Alright, pause.
Wait, then the morning?
No, you're fine. It's right here. Got it.
Oh.
I'll try it.
President of the United States. Oh, here comes the Prime Minister there. No.
So a handshake or the lack of a handshake can have us talking for weeks and weeks and weeks, even the BBC and the New York Times. So obviously when we think about nonverbal behavior or body language, but we call it nonverbals as social scientists, it's language. So we think about communication. When we think about communication, we think about interactions. So what is your body language communicating to me? What's mine communicating to you?
Okay, so just to summarize that video, because it's, it is 20 minutes long, we only have 10 minutes. It's basically talking about how body language can change your perspective on somebody and your perspective on yourself based on what actions you do. Just showing right there, the Prime Minister didn't shake hands with that one gentleman, offering to shake hands with him, which might be viewed by some people as a form of disrespect. So you one real life situation you can take from that is kind of accidental too, because me and Juan, my friend Juan here, we were walking back to our usual spot from lunch one day, and we were talking about how overpopulated Great Oak was, and so we're trying to find a way to get people to get out of our way, because it's so hard to move around with 4,000 kids coming at you. So Juan came up with an idea of trying to look insecure and putting your head down while walking. Maybe people will move. But I thought of a way of just trying to look confident and dominate, keeping your head up and having good posture. And it was actually pretty funny because Juan actually got stuck between a group of 3 people, and I actually got people to move out of the way from me. So that's just one real life situation that occurred that is accurate. Next slide.
Okay. So language can be very complex, and it can evoke changes in people and their perspective, like all around the world. And from this, we can pose our question, which is: to what extent does language change the way one views the user of language and themselves? So we chose this main question because language has a significant impact in the world we live in today, and the aspects of language that we focused on were body language and how it conveys ideas and how it evokes emotion. So a person's body language can affect how people accumulate judgments about that person. So an example of this would be when you see someone who looks shy from their body position, like in an interview. If they have poor body posture, that could prevent that person from being hired at a job. And it can also body language can change how we feel about ourselves. So if you were to smile, you start to feel happy, or if you're forced to smile, your body will start to think that you're feeling happy. And also if you are to stand in an upright power position that resembles a confident person, then after a certain period of time, your body will start to think that you are more confident.
So one of the questions we were to derive from the original main question was how accurately can language evoke emotion? We come up with this because of how she was discussing about body language and how we make implications, we make inferences about how someone's feeling, and that might not be necessarily accurate as to what we view someone who might feel insecure, but they're just perfectly fine with themselves. and so there are discrepancies. There might be discrepancies on like their emotions, and so we need to analyze how we come to like different kind of ways we make these kind of inferences. So one of them would be body language demonstrating your current mood, and such as the smile, as how Juan was discussing. Also, diction used within a sentence, how you the words you use, or like so certain words might convey more of your emotions better than certain other words, such as if you hate someone, you hate someone, or you might even use curse words to convey how much anger you have, or the structure of a sentence and its psychological influence. Such as if you were giving bad news or good news, the way you present it might change the psychologically how to a person, and the tone of a phrase versus like you might sound, if you're telling someone you love them, that you like use a serious phrase like, oh, I love you, or you just nonchalant, oh, I love you, and so then in the perspective of history, to understand a historical event, there are certain ways to present it, such as if you do hard, cold facts, you might not completely get a full emotional understanding of that event, versus someone telling you directly a story from it, such as the Vietnam War. If you get someone who is explaining to you a personal experience of how they survived the Vietnam War, versus someone explaining to you like, oh, there were like 4 million people who died during the war, then you're going to have a different perspective on it, and you won't get that emotional connection within that event.
Okay, so the next question we came up with are, how are some forms of language better at conveying ideas than others? And we came up with this question because we were concerned with viewpoints on people and how language can change how you view yourselves and others. So I began to wonder if some forms of language were more fitting in certain areas of knowledge than others for doing so. So the first example I came up with was the natural sciences. So the natural sciences, they concern the world around us and within us, and they usually try and figure out why things happen, and they seek to address issues like the spread of diseases. So many forms of language are present in the natural sciences, written language, you have numerical language as well, and it's also a field of shared knowledge because science is usually generally shared across the world with many different sciences. So the example I came up with was conceptual physics. So conceptual physics has been growing recently, largely because it's mainly void of mathematics. It's mostly verbal and written language that's used to convey physics ideas and try to impart a better understanding, versus the typical physics class, which is usually based on algebra or calculus. So the first example up there is the normal physics we're used to, and the second example is the conceptual physics. And the reason that conceptual physics might be better for others is because of just the individual. If you're more numerically based, then you generally do better with normal physics. So the second example I had was the arts. So the arts, they're made up of various types of creative mediums like photography, and they usually seek to present ideas regarding society and problems in society a lot of the time. The arts are a safe way to kind of try and keep society from going astray, or from continuing on the path that it's going, like The Giver, for instance. So it's also shared knowledge because you are imparting an idea on others, but it's also highly personal because it's very creative. So they rely heavily on the use of language, especially like verbal and physical language in like theaters. So melodrama and pantomime, for example. So what they do is they convey emotional intent, or they change your idea about a character, for instance. Like in melodrama, you have the typical brave pose, and so what that does is that shows you this character is feeling a certain way. Artistic pieces as well, like the photograph on the side. So it's void of written language, but it contains really heavy body language, and from that you can obviously see like feelings of oppression. So it really conveys the audience's feeling regarding a subject and might change your viewpoint of yourself. So the last one I had was mathematics. So it concerns trends, shapes, and numerical data like graphs. So mathematics is generally used to solve problems in design, like the antennas in smartphones, and ideas, like the sciences. So mathematics is usually obviously numerical because it's mathematics, with the concession that variables are represented by numbers, or letters, like in algebra. So I came up with the example of SAT questions. Because the math questions are generally like in the word form, like the ones on the side in the red, but you have to convert them. So the reason that some people might be better at SAT questions than others is because of who they are as individuals. So if they're more inclined to numerical formulas, they're going to be better with numerical formulas, and the math will be harder for them to convert through written language. So overall, some ideas are better through certain mediums of language just because of an individual or just because of the area of knowledge. Okay, that's our presentation.
Thank you.